Aisha wants to speak to us from Manchester. Tell us what you think, Aisha.
Look at how much influence they have over the wider Muslims. Look at people like Haytham al-Haddad.
Yeah,
they have
an extremist cleric.
Influence.
He's an extremist.
Well, he might be an extremist in your opinion.
Well, no, Aisha, anyone who... No, Aisha, come on, hold on. Here's where I'm going to have to challenge you. He is on the record, on television, refusing to condemn, on YouTube clips and others that I've looked into thoroughly, I can assure you, Haytham Haddad refuses to condemn female genital mutilation, and that is cutting off female genitalia in the name of one version of one opinion of religion. He refuses to condemn in the ideal conditions the hudud punishments, which is chopping off hands, lashing adulterers. You know, this man believes in the enforcement of medieval Sharia-justified punishments, barbaric punishments on people, but he says in the ideal caliphate. That's extremism, Aisha.
But that is actually not the main issue. That really isn't the main issue. Actually, the hudud punishments and FGM, these are big issues, but they're not the issue.
Well, Aisha, I tell you what, you're saying that's not a main issue. That's worse. You said it was unpalatable to work with the BNP to challenge far-right terrorism. The BNP don't believe in cutting off female genitalia. They're just racist. And I say that word just racist deliberately because when compared to chopping off female genitalia, the BNP got nothing on that. Haytham Haddad believes in unpalatable views. And if you're willing to work with Haytham Haddad to challenge jihadist terrorism, why wouldn't you be willing to work with the BNP to challenge racist terrorism?
Because I don't think the BNP really would want to challenge racist terrorism.
And you think Haytham Haddad, who believes in so-called enforcing so-called Sharia punishments...
He's invested a lot. If you go on YouTube and look at some of his videos, he's invested a lot of his time, and he every day takes emails from people who might be, you know...
Have you heard what, Aisha, have you heard what he says about gays? This isn't the way to challenge extremism, by bringing in somebody who perpetuates the very same extremist ideology but doesn't use violence yet to bring it about. Of course it is. Enforcing theocracy, enforcing one version of Islam over society is what the jihadists want to do. The only difference is Haytham doesn't do it with bombs, he does it with his tongue, and the jihadists do it with bombs. One is criminal, but one is still extremist.
Why does he actively discourage people from using violence?
Well, exactly. So do the BNP, Aisha. So do the BNP's official policy, which is why they remain legal, by the way, right, is not terrorist. That doesn't mean we can work with them, does it? They're not part of the solution.
We're dealing with a huge problem right now.
I know, Aisha, which is why I'm trying to address it in a consistent way. If you do what you're saying, you'll make it worse. Because you'll see that the people who are the ordinary white working class communities in this country will see Muslims willing to work with extremists. What do you think they're going to do? They're then going to embrace the BNP as part of the solution against the terrorism themselves. They're going to say, well, if you can do it, why can't we do it?
I've seen BNP members and their reaction to the Jill Cox killing, and to be honest, most of them were very sympathetic. It's not the case. It's not with the actual killing.
Okay, let's move the example, Aisha. Would you be so? Let's take somebody like Nigel Farage, Katie Hopkins, and these voices who are on the populist right. Why don't you start working with them? They've clearly condemned terrorism, but you don't agree with them, do you?
If they actively did some grassroots.
All right, Tommy Robinson. Every single time there's a violent attack, he condemns it.
It's not enough to condemn it, though, is it? You have.
Well, there you go. Oh! Now it's not enough to condemn it. So you're not going to work with Tommy Robinson, but you're prepared to work with somebody who believes in FGM. You're prepared to work with somebody who believes in female genital mutilation. I think we need a bit of nuance here, Aisha. We've got to understand that just because somebody's not a terrorist doesn't mean they're part of the solution. The solution has to come from Muslims who believe unequivocally in human rights-based values, in small L liberal democratic values, which are, by the way, the values of this country. It's the same values that allow you to call up on this radio show, disagree with me, and if I saw you, I'd still buy you a cup of tea, right? Because it's those values that make us who we are as a nation and bind us together. But anyone who doesn't subscribe to those values, they're not the enemy, but they can't be part of the solution.
It's a big shame because we want to be part of the solution.
What do you mean we? You're with me, aren't you? You believe in liberal democratic values, don't you, Aisha?
I am a conservative Muslim. I do believe in democratic values, but I don't completely agree with the liberal values because I consider homosexuality to be sinful. No,
but that's fine. You don't want to enforce your opinion on others, though, do you?
No, of course not. But
there you are. So you're on the liberal democratic side of this. You may be conservative, but you're no different to Jacob Rees-Mogg. He's not an extremist, and nor are you. But the point is, the minute you want to say one day I want a caliphate that punishes gays and criminalises them, then I've got a problem.
but that's not the issue. The issue is killing people. The issue
Do you aspire one day to a Sharia state that will criminalize and outlaw homosexuality?
Yes, I do, because eventually I think that would be I don't actively aspire to it, but eventually, and you would know this because you're in Hizb, you were in Hizb.
Yeah, and I reject all those ideas. And the difference is you don't. Would you? Okay, you aspire to one day. You aspire to a caliphate that would criminalize and punish homosexuality. What about adultery? Do you aspire one day to a Sharia-compliant state that punishes adultery?
If the necessary the principles were in place, and then I would agree with that. But
with punishing adultery,
of course, I think adultery is disgusting.
Yep. Okay, and what's the punishment?
Okay, so. Look, as someone who's grown up in this country...
Don't look me, Aisha. If those ideal Sharia conditions are met, as you've just said, what should the punishment for adultery be?
I'm not trying to evade your question. Stoning to death. I'm not trying to evade your question.
You believe in stoning people to death?
It's part of the Sharia. It's part of the hudud. You can't deny that as a Muslim.
Yes or no? Right? In an ideal Sharia-compliant state, do you believe in stoning adulterers to death?
Okay. I will answer your question if you agree that those actual the boundaries of what you need to prove, the burden of proof is so high that it would never actually be done, right? If you agree with
an ideal, when the burden of proof is met and all the Sharia conditions are complied with, in an ideal Islamic state, do you endorse the stoning of adulterers to death?
Yes, but in principle, however, I don't believe that it would ever happen because the burden of proof is so high.
I tell you what, Aisha, I thank you for continuing this conversation, because you've just demonstrated precisely why you and people like you who sympathise with your kinds of ideas can never be part of the solution. That's worse, Aisha, than the BNP. The BNP don't believe in murdering people for mistakes or choices they make in their personal lives. Sometimes they're not even mistakes, like so-called apostasy laws and blasphemy laws and punishing people for leaving the religion. That's free choice. People like you will never be part of the solution until you abandon those ideas. I will continue talking to you. You're not my enemy, but you're certainly not part of the solution, because the ideas and the values you believe in are worse than Tommy Robinson's. They're worse than the EDL. They're definitely worse than anyone who claims to be populist right Trump. They're worse than the BNP, because these guys don't go around advocating by law murdering people for personal choices. They may have unpalatable ideas, but you idealize murdering people for making personal individual choices that happen not to agree with your definition of God's law, and that can never be part of the solution. That's Aisha there from Manchester. Sanjay wants to speak to us from Leicester. Tell us what you think, Sanjay.
Hi. What I wanted to say is I feel like the Islamic terror has been continuing ever since it started, Islam, 1400 years. Now, I feel as long as it's in this country, it's going to continue, and Muslims are just going to keep overpopulating anyway, and it will never end. So I don't know why people get so shocked when there's a terrorist attack. I also feel like that previous lady is a typical example of a moderate Muslim, but I respect her, but at least she was honest with you. Most Muslims would lie and say, no, it is peaceful, and they don't believe in things like apostasy and things. But at least I got to give it to her lady. That's moderate Muslim, but at least she's being honest with you. This is my problem. In Islam, it is intolerant. It doesn't make a difference what you say.
You sound quite pessimistic, Sanjay.
If you look into this country right now, just look at what they're doing in this country right now. Islam can't even be reformed. So the problem is this: either you ban it in non-Muslim countries, or you live with it and just tolerate the intolerant. That's what I feel. Because in Muslim,
what do you think? Hang on, is that the only option there? Two options: either ban it or allow this thing to continue being intolerant. How Sanjay, come on, you genuinely don't think that your pessimism and your restricting of the solutions, that it's either ban it or it continues to be intolerant? You genuinely don't think that this is not informed by your own approach to understanding Islam in exactly the same monolithic one way of reading that the extremists do?
No, because everyone still reads the same book, and that book has still got them births of hate.
Come on, man, come on. You're sounding like an immature 12-year-old reading a book and insisting that you're the only one who's got the correct reading of it. The truth is that same... No, look, I don't need the book to tell me anything. I've got my own morals, thank you very much. But those Muslims who are conservative, let me ask you a question, Sanjay. There's a passage that says no compulsion in religion. There's another passage that's in the Quran. There's a hadith that says whoever changes their religion, kill them. Now, which one's the literalist reading?
you're right about that. No compulsion in every. That's great, but at the same time, you got
no.
no.
Answer my question.
Contradiction itself, yeah.
Hold on. Which one? You're saying there's only one way to read it. Which one is the one way? Which was out of those two passages I've read you, where one says no compulsion in religion, the other says kill whoever changes their religion. Which one is the literalist, correct way of reading that scripture?
So how does a Muslim know when they open the Quran? Oh, wait.
Sanjay, answer the question, please. Answer the question. You're insisting that Islam is this one thing, and it's evil and violent and horrible and killing people. You're insisting in adopting the same reading of Islam as the extremists do, who then want to force it down everyone else's throat. And the only difference is you want to get rid of it, they want to impose it, right? But you both agree that Islam is this totalitarian ideology that forces everybody else. So I'm asking you, if that's true, that if there is only one correct way to read Islam, which, by the way, the Saudi Arabian Wahhabi state will also agree with you on. If there is only, as will the Iranian theocratic state, if there is only one correct way to read Islam, I've asked you a question. Which correct way to read these two passages? One says, from the Quran, no compulsion in religion. The Hadith says, whoever changes religion, kill him. Which is the correct way of reading that scripture?
The correct way is no compulsion in religion. That's the correct way. But
then how is it Islam going to kill everyone?
I've got a question for you. You just talked about Saudi Arabia, the heart of Islam. How can you insult the heart of Islam? Saudi Arabia is the heart. Surely you're insulting Islam at the best, aren't you?
No, Sanjay, you're assuming that the version of Islam imposed on Saudi Arabia since the Wahhabis took over from the Ottoman Turks who were there ruling before them is the correct version. It just happens to be the current version that is being exported all over the world by the use of petrodollars that we, by the way, ally with. The CIA backed Saudi Wahhabism in Afghanistan against the Soviet communists. That's how jihadism spread in the world. These are very contemporary geopolitical and theocratic problems we're faced with, but it wasn't always like this, and it doesn't always have to be like this. There isn't one fixed way of reading this scripture.
Okay, that's very interesting, but if you take away all the extremism and terrorism from Islam, if you take away all the terrorism, you don't think there's an issue within Islam, just tolerant Muslims wanting to try to take...
I do think there is.
You don't think...
No, I do. I do think there's a problem. I just said with the previous call, I said there's a huge problem when 52% of British Muslims last surveyed said they would criminalise homosexuality. It's a huge problem. When a quarter said... When a quarter said they sympathised... When surveyed, they said they sympathised with the Charlie Hebdo attacks. It's a huge problem. It's not an insurmountable problem. That's what you're saying. I'm not saying it's insurmountable. I'm saying it's huge. There is a difference between those two things.
And the only way of solving it is to ban it. Now, when I say...
No, Sanjay, no, that's... Ban what? To ban...
Muslims...
Sanjay, listen to yourself. You're sounding exactly like the extremists you want to ban. You don't force your opinion and tell people they're not allowed to believe in something as long as they're not harming anyone else. If you've got a view that somebody objects with, should I now ban you, Sanjay, because you've said something I find repugnant? Should I now say Sanjay needs to be banned? It's puerile. This ridiculous approach that just because you agree with something, you want to disagree with something, you want to ban it?
Majid, if listen to me, if Hindus were doing the things Muslims do, I would sit there and say, yeah, actually, do you know what? Actually ban Hinduism.
Well, then you're not a liberal. Then you're not. Then you are, Sanjay. I'll tell you why not. Because that makes you a fascist. That's why not. If somebody's not using violence to impose their view on others, even if they are doing and saying something that we vehemently disagree with, until they use violence, the essence of liberal humanism, secularism, and democratic human rights-based values is to challenge, oppose them, but don't ban them until they resort to violence. That's why the BNP are still legal in this country. Only fascists want to ban things they disagree with. And Sanjay, that makes you as bad as the extremists who want to ban people like you for challenging them as well. That's Sanjay Day from Leicester. You who've been listening have heard me take on both pro-Islamist apologists for theocracy, as well as those on the other end of the extreme who call in and want to ban Islam all together. And whether that call was Aisha or Sanjay after her, both taking extreme positions, and I believe that both of them have the legal right. I wouldn't ban either of them. They have the legal right to those extreme positions, but if they're calling into this show, they better expect to be challenged for their bigotry. It's the reason why the BNP remain legal in this country, but nobody says we shouldn't challenge their racism. Likewise with Aisha's justification for theocracy, and indeed Sanjay's desire to ban an entire religious community in this country just because he's scared of them. This is where somebody calling in saying ban this religion or ban that religion. I've got a text here. Let me have you respond to it. It says Paul in Ashford has text saying, Mr. Nawaz, please don't downplay Sanjay's comment. I personally do not agree with his view, but to say he wants to ban Islam just because he's scared is a bit patronizing. People are being murdered in its name. So, Alexandra, this is the thing, though. It's like people are becoming quite intolerant, and as a result, saying things like, "We want to ban Islam in this country. That's the solution."
Yeah.
When that is actually applying the exact same prescriptive totalitarian approach that the extremists want to apply, which is just ban things we disagree with. That cannot be the way forward.
In all extent.
And Tawsif, you know why I'm happy people like you call in and respond to callers like Aisha, is because then we end up with people like Sanjay calling in immediately after her saying the solution is to ban Islam in this country. And it's like, my God, it's like, this is the problem. It's those two extremes need each other to survive. They feed on each other. It's like, when the Muslim extremists say this is a war against Islam and Muslims and all non-Muslims want to persecute us, they point to people like Sanjay saying we want to ban Islam in this country. Likewise, Sanjay, when he tries to justify why he wants to ban Islam, will point to people like Aisha and say, see, that's what they truly believe in, and we need people like you to be more vocal. Malcolm wants to speak to us from Hounslow. Tell us what you think, Malcolm.
But let me speak as an indigenous Englishman, from the country, and, the problem we have is Islam is not of England, it's not of Britain, it's imported, and we've got all this trouble and all this strife, and so you had a lady earlier saying, we must integrate more, we must do this. But I'm an Englishman. I'm saying, no, there's no must do that. If the people that come here aren't willing to integrate into our way of life, why should we make compensations for them? I'd like there to be, I could go into any pub in England and I could stand up and I could go, hey, is anyone here a Muslim? Because if you are, you're welcome here. You know what? None will be there. Because they don't integrate. They don't want to integrate. And it's not of England. Okay? So I think the people that say, ban it, we've got to all understand. We know where they're coming from.
So would you agree with banning it?
Yes. No, right. I'd have no problem with it. It wouldn't.
You'd have no problem with banning a religion. Okay, so let's talk about Malcolm. Let's talk you through this absurdity. How do we implement banning a religion which 4% of the country currently subscribe to? Tell me how you'd bring that banning about. What would you do?
If everybody looked at the character of Muhammad. Okay.
No, Malcolm, address the question I've asked you. No, I let you speak. I now asked you a question. You're on a radio show, which is a talk show. You're going to respond to my question. How would you go about practically banning Islam, which is a religion that 4% of the United Kingdom professes?
Right. What we do is we say, no more new mosques. No more new mosques. We also do actually look at the Quran and say, actually, this does not belong on our bookshelves because it's a book of hate. And it does not belong on our bookshelves.
So you can buy Mein Kampf on our bookshelves, but you can't buy the Quran, yeah?
Let's face it, we shouldn't have Mein Kampf on our bookshelves.
So we should ban Mein Kampf as well? What about Das Kapital by Karl Marx? Should we ban that too?
Well, you know what? Now you're spinning off on a tangent. I haven't read those books. I have read the Quran, by the way. Why?
No. What I'm saying is, you've just said you want to ban Mein Kampf as well.
If we should ask, shall we ban Quran or not? Read it, and you'll know why we should.
Okay, so we ban Mein Kampf too. I'll tell you that.
That's me spinning off on a tangent. That's you trying to change the subject.
No, it's not. It's me saying, should we ban things we disagree with?
Talk about the Quran.
Sorry?
Talk about the Quran.
I am talking about the Quran. I'm asking you, give me practical steps. You've said let's not have no more mosques opening up, okay? But then what do we do with the mosques that already exist, Malcolm?
No, well, we progressively see them, I don't, look, you've got to get this. I'm speaking as an Englishman. We don't care whether there are mosques or not.
So who are you speaking to? You're speaking as Englishman. Who am I?
I'm speaking to all those,
No, me. What do you consider me?
I don't know what you are. I know nothing of your background.
Okay, I was born and raised in Essex. I live in London. I have only a British passport. So who are you speaking to?
Britain. Most English people do not even identify with Britain anymore.
No, Malcolm. You're saying you're speaking as an Englishman. Am I speaking as an Englishman when I speak?
I don't know. What's your background?
I've just told you. Do you consider me English?
Where do your parents come from?
No, I'm asking you whether you consider me, not my parents. Do you consider me English?
I don't think so. I don't know because you're not giving me enough information.
I've just told you, I was born and raised in Essex. Malcolm, here's the information for you. I was born and raised in Essex. I only carry a British passport. I live in London, which happens to reside in England, right? What do you consider me?
I consider you're British.
Not English?
No.
Okay. Do you accept I have as much as a right and a say in this conversation as you do?
I believe you do, but I'm not entirely sure that that's appropriate.
No, well, I'll tell you...
You're the radio show, aren't you?
Now, I'll tell you why it's appropriate, because If you keep saying I'm speaking as a native indigenous Englishman, what I find objectionable... What I find objectionable, Malcolm, is that you're talking to one as well, right? So let's have a conversation on parity. I'm asking you practically how you would want to ban 4% of this country, and you haven't given me an answer. All you've said is, let's not build any more mosques. That doesn't do anything with the mosques that already exist. Practically, what would you do?
You're talking over me. I didn't say ban the 4%. I said ban the book.
So not Islam. Don't ban Islam.
Yeah, let's get into a situation where Islam sort of falls away and becomes less of an influence.
How, though? Look, so don't open in new mosques, right? That's one concrete policy suggestion you've made, but that's all you've given me so far.
All people appreciate and understand that it's not of this country. It's incompatible with the values of this country.
Well, no, but again, you're assuming, like the extremists, that there's only one reading of that religion. Christianity wasn't of this country originally, was it, Malcolm? Malcolm, was Christianity of this country originally?
Yep.
Yes. Is that where Jesus came from, Essex? Was Jesus an Essex boy like me? Malcolm, was Jesus an Essex boy like me?
You are having a sensible conversation, so let's leave it.
No, Malcolm, before you hang up, because you clearly, you recognise that you don't really necessarily have any answers to these questions, so before you hang up like a coward, just like the Muslim fundamentalists who hang up on me when they can't address my questions, I'm going to give you one last chance to answer the question. Is Christianity from this country historically? And the fact that you've gone... The fact that you put the phone down demonstrates that you clearly know it's not. Jesus was from Bethlehem, which is in current day Israel and the West Bank and that region, Palestine and Israel. It's not Britain. Christianity was brought here. It was brought here just like Islam was brought here by people who moved here. And for you to insist that just because it wasn't born here, it's foreign and must be banned, is as absurd as claiming Judaism and Christianity must also be banned. I concede that there is a challenge today when it comes to liberal democratic values within Muslim communities. I'm at the forefront of engaging in that struggle. But the solution cannot be more of the same, which is if you disagree with me, I'm going to ban you, which is precisely what the theocrats say to me when I challenge them within our same communities. And anyone who adopts those views automatically becomes part of the problem, not part of the solution.